Okay, it is May 21st and I'm heading out to check on my hives that have been split, and I'm just checking to make sure they're okay. I even need to add some honey supers, and you can tell from the walk, no matter how shaky it is, things are getting even greener out here. So these are two of the hives that I've split, and I just wanted to show you what it looks like from the entrance a little bit, the bees coming and going. Those little bits of wood are called introducers, and you use them for all kinds of things, but when you split a hive, the hive is weak, so you put introducers on just to keep pests out. So here I am working on my two stronger hives, and I'm popping off this lid, and I don't have an inner cover in here because the ants keep getting in it. So for me to pop it off, what I'm actually doing is like pushing down and trying to lever up a little bit, because big, sudden, jarring movements makes the hive pretty upset. So I'm kind of thinking like, can I slowly break the wax and propolis seal more smoothly by adding pressure as I pull? One of the jobs I'm going to be doing with all these hives is removing these feeders that are there, because you can see here that they've filled up this top box already with wax and nectar and honey. So this is their second honey super. They've already filled for the most part, so they don't need food. They're doing fine. So I'm going to take their feeder away, add more frames, and I think with this one I even add another honey super. That would be the third one on this hive. How much is that? Well, these boxes weigh 45 to 50 pounds when full of honey, and when I ran one through the extractor last year, I got 2.5 gallons from one of these boxes. So just this one hive, you can figure it's got 7.5 gallons of honey. The other one that's next to it, where the camera's sitting on, is likely also going to produce quite a lot this year. The way I split my hives is that these two that are really productive are from a queen that I had that I really like their temperament of. She's very, like, the bees are very gentle, very easygoing, but you can tell they're also really productive. The ones that I first showed by the entrance are the queens from the swarms that I had, and they are not nearly as productive, and they're far more defensive. So I've actually started trying to swap out some of the queens in one of them, so we'll see if that takes. But these hives have been given a very good head start. So here we go. What you're going to see here is basically a full hive inspection where I'm having to get through all of these hives to check them all out. So the honey super comes off, and then this is another honey super. In the previous video, this is where I found the queen, but since then I put a queen excluder underneath and made sure the queen was beneath, and so the bees have been filling this all up with honey, and you can even see some of that shiny honey there that I just pointed to. So they've already filled this basically completely up with honey again, and now this is the brood chamber where they all live. Very different level of activity down here, but still pretty full. Down here is where all the nurse bees and the queen are. And so you can kind of get a sense for how a hive's population changes with lots of foragers and honey producers. And now the brood chamber gets kind of like relaxed, and it's doing its job making tons of bees, but it's no big deal. I'm pulling out the outermost frame, which usually doesn't get much wax built on it, but pull that out. Now I can have more room to work and open the hive. And what I'm doing is basically checking to make sure this hive actually has a functioning queen. There are kind of two ways to do it. One is you actually find the queen. Some people are really naturally good at that and some aren't. But it's not so straightforward. You pick them up frame by frame and look. But the whole time that's happening, the queen can move. And so you might look at a frame and so she's not there, but in the time you pick up the other frame, she walks to the other one and then you missed it. The other way you look is you just look at what's going on the frame. So like this is the back side, they haven't built much wax yet, but on this front side it was full of like solid, and that means that there's been a laying queen at least in the past 2 weeks. That's a really good looking pattern, so my first clue is we might have a queen. And what I'm really looking for is I want to see all stages of life on these frames. I want to see eggs, I want to see super small squiggly larvae, and I want to see capped brood, which is what you're seeing, that solid top that's everywhere. That's capped brood. So in the places there's not, I'm looking inside to see if I see the little milky white squigglies. for the larvae. And I see them. It's not hard to find that everywhere. So while I could say that's done, part of this is me just enjoying checking them out and seeing everything. And what I thought was interesting about this hive was just how productive this queen is. I mean, she is filling up these frames with brood. You might notice this one, the center is empty, which means in the past little while, all the bees have emerged from that, and the queen will come back and relay. And there's a certain, when you're looking at how a queen lays eggs, we would typically judge that as, if they kind of start from the middle and build out in this nice oval-y, circle-y pattern, we would say that's a really solid queen. If looks like they're doing it all piecemeal and scattered, we might think that that's not a great queen. I don't know what the research is behind that, but when I'm looking at this one, what I'm seeing is this one has a really good laying pattern. If you look towards the bottom near my thumb, you'll see a different kind of stuff there. That's all pollen that they put in there. And the way bees work is they kind of build in rings. So the centermost ring will be brood, then you have pollen on the next ring, and then you have honey on the next ring outside of it. And so one of the things you get to see is how tidy your bees are, in a sense, by looking at it from that lens. And this one is almost textbook. I will say that at this point, the bees have been getting kind of feisty at me because I've gone through 2 hives already. And so I'm also trying to work really, really quickly because I have to be somewhere soon. So I'm being a bit rough with the bees, rougher than I normally would be, and they're letting me know. I didn't get stung, but they were climbing all over my gloves and everything like that. So I was trying to be careful not to squish any. So you see me shaking more bees off because they're climbing on my gloves. The other thing that's happening is I'm crushing some of the honeycomb and getting honey on me, which also prompts that behavior. If you get honey on your tool or your hands, the bees will just head on up there and camp for a while. So we keep going, and I think what I'm doing here, I'm heading to the front to pull off the entrance reducers because the hives are healthy, they're doing fine. No need for the entrance reducer anymore. So I had meant to take this one off a couple weeks ago, but it was kind of jammed in there. So I waited till I did this, where I had it completely apart so I could pull the box apart from the wood and pull it off. You'd be astonished how well the bees can propolize something to the point that it doesn't really want to move, even though you think it can't possibly be that stuck. They can stick it pretty well. So here we go, reassembling. That's the queen. That's the queen excluder. And now I'm back on the other hive, and guess what? The ants have moved to the other hive now. So once again, I'm sitting here thinking, well, this is not what I wanted to deal with today. So they were on the previous hive that we were just looking at, and I took off that cloth cover so they wouldn't be there, but they decided, hey, this other one looks good, and they moved into this one. So I will be taking this inner cover away as well, which is kind of the whole point of these things, is to protect the hives a little bit, but it's doing the opposite. So in the last video I was way more careful dealing with this, and this one I'm not because I don't have time right now. I also spent a lot of time squishing ants, and I don't have time, so I'm just brushing them all off really quickly, and I'm assuming I'll hit some bees with this too, but I just don't have a whole lot of time. Now you might notice that these frames are spread apart. This was because I didn't have enough at the time, and I wanted to give them more room to work. They haven't really taken advantage of it, but there's a style of putting honey supers on called checkerboarding, where you basically space them out with a 1-frame gap in the middle, and then you put boxes on top, kind of alternating those gaps. And the idea is that the bees really enjoy that, but I haven't had a good chance of trying it out yet. So I put that in because that's all I had. But since they haven't taken advantage of this yet, I'm gonna just fill it all up. So it's time to get to work on this other hive. And this is the other highly producing hive. More ants crawling everywhere. And so again, I'm adding honey supers, and I'm checking for the queen. So I have all these extra boxes of frames that I brought to fill everything out, and so that's what I've been doing. Backfilling where the feeders were, adding a whole box to the hive that I was just on, and in this one I'm going to fill out these remaining spots with frames. And I'm generally trying to decide which order I'd like to do things in. Do I want to fill it first or fill it at the end? You know, concerns about weight and whatever else. Not that that's a big deal, but it's something I have to think through every time I want to do it. And I think in this case, yeah, I'm gonna fill it up later and just get through what I need to get through. So here's the honey super, and you can see it's very full of bees. Just like the other one, that they're being very productive in terms of honey production right now, which is good. You know, that's exciting. But the real question is, are they healthy in terms of having a queen? So we've got to pop off this 40 to 50 pound box, and this is like the job every week until I claim the honey, which is I have to take these boxes off every single time to check on things. And so some people have joked like, oh, beekeeping seems really interesting and fun, and I joke, you know, when it's in the high 90s and you're in a full suit with smoke in your face and you're lifting these 50-pound boxes in a hive full of 65,000 stinging bugs, that's how you'll know you like it or not, because it's a hot, sweaty, heavy thing. Here I am pulling the queen excluder off, and they glue it down to the thing. So what I do is I add just a certain amount of tension so it doesn't pop, and I want the wax to kind of smoothly break, and I twist to break the connection so it doesn't bother the bees. The ones on the queen excluder get really mad really fast, so I try to be gentle with them. And then here we are underneath the brood chamber. This is where I'm going to start checking for a queen, or at least signs that there's a healthy queen. In the previous hive, like I said, their brood pattern was so like textbook good. It was really quick to figure out that yeah, they've got a queen. It's fine. So it's time to see what this one has. And I am using a new camera for the second time with this one, so I'm still debating how I like it. I do like that I can pick it up and move it easy. I can have a little remote control I can use, though none of that really works out when I have these big gloves and my hands are full and all that, but my hope is I'll figure it out. I can also attach it to things, but I haven't figured out how to attach it to my suit. Alright, so here's a frame. Now you can see here, there's nothing capped. It's all empty. And these things that I'm pointing out are queen cells, supersedure cells. These are cells the hive is built to make a new queen because they don't like their old one. There's more of them. I've never seen so many. I don't destroy them. I think I should, just so they can build wax again. But this hive is full of these cells. Not swarm cells, which would mean the hive is taken off, but supersedure cells, which means they've tried to replace their queen. Now, interestingly enough, one of the other hives you didn't see me inspect a few weeks ago didn't have a queen, so I took one of the frames from this hive, which has a queen that I like, or genetically I like, and it had supersedure cells, capped, which means a queen would emerge in a few days, and I put it back into the other hive after I shook all the bees off. And the idea is that queen would emerge and then mate, and then that would be the new queen, provided the hive took her in. And that worked. That other hive has a laying queen now. This one is now something I'm looking for. And so you start to see some capped brood. There's another queen cell. But I'm not seeing larvae. I'm seeing very little capped brood and like no larvae, which has got me worried that there's not an actual queen in here. Which, here's the puzzle for me. How are all these supersedure cells there that are broken open and there's not a queen? Now, queens, just because a queen emerges doesn't mean she'll survive. There's lots of things that eat queen bees out in the wild, birds and dragonflies and all the things. So it's possible that they died, but you know, just counting how many of these there were, you think, gosh, there's got to be a queen. This is like 7 or 8 of these supersedure cells that are all opened. How did no queen survive? And yet I'm getting towards the middle of the pile of frames, and you usually see this like your highest probability of seeing whether a queen is alive and working, because again, they try to generally build middle out. So the closer you get to the middle, the more likely you are to find the queen or that she's been laying. But I'm working my way there, and I'm still just not seeing it. And I'm going through my head, you know, the best hive for me to pull a frame from to give them more larvae to make a new queen is the one I just finished that's like 5 boxes tall, and I'm thinking, I do not want to do that. So here's another frame. Again, just a little bit of capped brood. Now bees emerge from like egg to a bee in like 20-something days. So when you see capped brood, you can kind of do the math backwards and figure out how long ago a queen had to have laid. But you don't know what's happened in between then and now unless you see other stages of life. And that's what I'm just not finding anywhere. And now I'm having to remember to stop looking for the larva and start looking for the queen, because there could be a queen that's new and just hasn't mated and is all that stuff, but I haven't been paying close attention for the queen. I've been looking for signs that there is a healthy one, and I'm wondering, do I have to go back through every frame to try to find the queen? What if I don't? Like, this is a pretty big wrinkle in what I was hoping I would find today, and you know, shame on me for making the assumption, but this is sort of the what it's like. You know, you have to go through every frame until you find the evidence you need, and in this case I have to find a queen or I have to find larvae, and otherwise this hive will die out over time. And since I'm short on time today, I don't want to pop open a whole other hive to pull out another frame of brood, shake the bees, swap it out with this one, and then be done. That's time I don't have today, so I'm really hoping I get lucky. You can see the big ridgy stuff towards the top that almost, it looks like it's like sticking out, and it's also on the edge. That's drone brood. They stick out like big nodules. And like I said, they have to make drones in the early spring. I said that, I think, in a different video. So this stuff's everywhere. But drones, ironically, aren't sign of a queen. There she is. Right there, I'm pointing to her. There's a queen. So, there's a queen. Now, I don't see signs that she's laying, but she's there. Now, that means she's either not mated, or she's only just mated and just getting started. But the fact that there's a queen is a good sign. That means I can kind of relax a little bit. There's not a really good way to know if she's mated other than you see that she lays eggs. But I was saying about the drone brood, drones aren't a good sign of hive health because all of the worker bees are female bees, which means they could lay eggs if they wanted to, and drones are considered unfertilized eggs, so drones can lay, or workers can lay drones. There's a whole other topic about if a hive gets really messed up, the workers out of panic will try to lay eggs and hope a miracle happens, and you'll just see them fill up with drones. That's a sign that they've been without a queen for a very long time and they're desperate. So drones aren't really a good indicator of hive health, even though they stand out a lot when you're checking through. So putting together the hives, all the frames back where they belonged. Queen excluder goes on. That keeps the queen from coming up to the honey boxes. And now the big boxes. And you know what's surprising about this? And you saw it wiggle a little bit. These boxes, even though they're sitting there for a minute or two, get stuck together again. And then you try to pull it and you wind up pulling 2 or 3 boxes, and then they slam down and the bees erupt and get mad. So it's like, you know, just nothing's easy. So now we're going to fill in these frames. I'm just trying to get them together, and now I'll put the remaining frames in. These are all new frames that I bought. Now there's kind of a thing about like spacing them out a little bit, so or alternating some that have wax and don't. A lot of people like to do that, so I'm pulling some that have been used previously, and I'm just going to put some in the middle of those just to spread them out. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but it's one of those things where everyone says that's what you should do, so I'll just do it. Why we use the wax is the bees will clean it up and keep using it. You know, it's not a big deal. But if you force them to continually make wax on new honeycomb or new frames, you know, that's time and energy they spend doing that instead of producing honey. So lots of beekeepers will say that the wax is the most important resource in an entire hive, is the wax they make, because the more of it they've got available to use, the quicker they rebound, the quicker they get to work, the more productive they can be.